Hi, I'm Nadia.
Hi, I'm Aaliyah.
Hi, I'm Nameera.
And this is Operation Tomatometer.
So, welcome back to another episode of Operation Tomatometer.
So today we have another special guest. Let's give a warm welcome to AMELIA Harrington, the classic's official book and media reviewer.
Woo!
Yay!
So, Amelia, why don't you tell our audience a little more about yourself and also your background in film?
So I'm the book and media critic or reviewer for the classic in general, and I started off with books, but I've kind of been moving towards a lot of historical movies lately, mostly because my parents are very into them, so we watch them together. I'm a current senior, so also I've already taken A-Push, but during the year that I had A-Push, I had a very strong interest in a lot of American history movies.
So, Nameera, will you like to tell our audience what we're covering today?
So, you're going to like this one, guys. You're going to like this one.
Okay.
So, if you haven't been living across the Van Rhines on East 61st Street,
Okay.
then you'll know about the newest HBO series, The Gilded Age.
And no, we are not talking about AP US history. Just gotta clear that up.
So, a brief summary. So far, the show is about Marion Brooke, who, due to the death of her father, moved from Pennsylvania to New York City to live with her old, rich aunts after she discovers that her father left her pretty much nothing. And with society changing rapidly due to the new economy, Miriam needs to choose between the already established rules or creating her own path in the Gilded Age.
The show first aired on January 24th, and episodes are actually released every Monday. So for now, we're going to be sharing our initial thoughts on only the first 2 episodes.
So, Amelia, before filming this episode, we actually asked you to choose between 2 things to review, so I'm curious why you chose the Gilded Age and not the other thing. Like, was there something specific that spoke to you?
Yeah, so I kind of was going off of a little bit, I think I have a little bit of a love for this, kind of posh, weird, rich people being crazy, comedy off of the Crown, because my parents binged it with me last year, and it was really fun. And then also, my mom is she's really into the Gilded Age, just in terms of her academic interests, so then I was like, oh, this is a good one to watch with the family.
I agree, I watched it with my mom as well. She loves it. So, we know Amelia here is new, but for anyone else that hasn't been watching or keeping up with the podcast, we're going to let you in onto what our first segment is, Rotten or Not, where we try to guess the audience reviews and the critic scores on Rotten Tomatoes.
So, let's start with our initial guesses for the critic score. Nameera, why don't you go first?
Oh my god, okay. Put on the spot. Okay. So, I honestly think that critics may have rated this show around a 74. I feel like there were a lot of really strong points in terms of plot, but I feel like the overall execution of it was just a little lackluster, especially in comparison to shows like Bridgerton, which were kind of in the same genre, although it came out a year ago. And it's just kind of interesting to see because HBO made this show and Bridgerton was made by Netflix. That's something to keep in mind as well.
I have a similar score to you, Nameera. I gave it a 79 because I'll get into later. On a personal viewpoint, it would be higher for me, but critically, I would think that they also saw it as bland, and I was thinking the same word you said, lackluster. It was interesting at points, and the plot was enthralling, but I think, the execution, I think it just wasn't hitting as some other historical shows we've seen, like Downton Abbey. I know my mom really loves that. I haven't seen it, though, but I know some other shows, historically hit really well.
So Downton Abbey, which I actually saw most of last year, I personally really liked it, and I know that it's very highly critically acclaimed. This one, because it's only the first 2 episodes, the Rotten Tomatoes score isn't going to be as accurate as if it were completely released. So I'm thinking it might be a little lower right now because it's still, trying to find itself a little bit.
That's true.
And that's what happens with TV shows. The characters, the actors will find themselves in their acting, and everything probably will get better, especially with something like this that's such a good concept. So I'm going to say something similar to you guys. I think that critics would have given it so far a 75.
And you, Amelia?
Yeah. I think I'd have to say about the same as you guys. I think, I don't know, it depends on really the audience. So I think the audience maybe would have a different opinion than the critics, where if the critics are like the Downton Abbey people, rather than the Bridgerton people, which is it's a little bit more fantastical, I think, Bridgerton, in comparison to the really hard historical, oh, this is based on a real story stuff. I think those critics might be a bit harsher on this show because it has some elements that are a little bit kind of like corny, especially like the romance element between the Russell guy and Marion. Like that particular part, it really stuck out to me as being unrealistic.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say about like a 75 or something like that.
Okay, wow. So it seems like we're all pretty on the same plane, just like a few points off from each other. So now our lovely producer, as always, show us the score.
Wow.
What is it?
Okay.
I can't read.
down.
It's upside down. Oh,
78.
It looks like an
Wow.
82 at first, but you turn it around.
Oh,
Okay,
geez.
78. All right, so we're all pretty close. Basically, we all got it in the 70s. Yeah. Do we agree with the score?
I think so. I think if it went above an 80, I think that's where I'd have a problem.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there was just some like plot points that weren't as fleshed out, like the robbery at the beginning of the show. I think I was very critical of it because we barely got like the screen time to see the robbery, and it was so quickly.
Yeah, it happened so fast. I didn't even know what happened.
Yeah,
though.
it was done so quickly, and like, so sorry. I did not love Marion's acting at that moment. I was
Yeah.
very critical about that. I was like, okay, you just got robbed. Come on now, like, where is something else? She sobbed really like I don't know what's going on with you, girl. like do a little more emotion in it, like, but yeah, stuff like that. And I feel like overall, like maybe just like even like sometimes like the settings and like the production design was kind of lackluster, especially for like a historical show. I feel like I need to be very, very immersed to really like appreciate like every single part of it.
I actually like the production and the
I was
setting.
gonna say I
the-
would
the
have to
sets and
disagree
stuff.
with you,
Yeah.
but keep going, Aaleia.
But I agree that the acting wasn't, as up to par as other historical dramas that we're used to seeing. It could also be that, again, the show is trying to find itself. Or it could be that the writing maybe isn't
Yeah.
as good as it could
That's what I
be.
thought.
It's an interesting era, right? Because they're not British, but they're also
Yeah.
they're also in the late 19th century. So it's difficult to get like the accent right for the actors and difficult to get like the writing exact. So I can understand that. But for the audience score, that's probably why I'm gonna have to do something that we don't do very often, which is go lower than the critic score for the audience score. I think that it might actually be like a 70. Now that I've seen
Really?
this, I think it's gonna be around a 70.
Okay, that's interesting. I would still go higher because I feel like Amelia mentioned with her family and then with my family, I know my mom loves historical shows like this, and I just think that the people that really enjoy these kinds of shows like Bridgerton and so on, I think it just still grapples you in. So I even was getting into it, so I would like to see the third episode. So I would say that they gave it at 83. But it is just the second episode, so who knows? We have to keep going.
Yeah, I think there's a weakness in some of the characters and a strength in some of the others that kind of, it's like a weird offset. So like Marion is kind of just like I don't know. She's just so
No, I agree,
She's
I
just
agree.
so bad. Like she's just she's kind of a, I don't want to say Mary Sue because that's a bad trope to perpetuate, and it's not really that true. But that's what I think of at first because she's nice to everyone. She's the one person who's respectful to the black woman. And then respectful to people regardless of their status or their social standing, like that woman in the party who's like shunned or something. But then she's kind of just not interesting enough to really fit in with this world that they're kind of developing of this aggressive kind of fiendish society, like high society of New York. In that way, though, the minor characters are kind of strong in that you don't know that much about them, but they're like they seem more accurate. And then because they are cruel and exclusionary, and then also even the Russell family, like the husband and wife are actually genuinely interesting in my opinion.
Yeah.
They're a little bit cliche, but like I would say for the audience, I would say maybe about like the same actually, because I think it's too early to tell, as you guys said.
Yeah.
For me personally, my initial guess for the audience score was around like a 78, but I feel like now like hearing all your points and about how the show is like still developing, I feel like I'm gonna go a little bit lower and say like a 76. I'm not incredibly low, but I'm not really sure. Like for me, it didn't like really like repulse me, but I
Yeah.
just constantly found myself comparing it to like Bridgerton. And I do agree with your point. The minor characters are much more interesting, and Marion's character is just really like she needs to be fleshed out, and I just know the way she's gonna be fleshed out is through the romance, which I'm not like a fan of. Like I really
that's true.
hope we don't go down that trope, but like I think it's a little inevitable seeing like Mr. Riggs come in from New York and then seeing like Larry Russell come in. But like they do have a lot of strong points with the Russell family itself.
Yeah.
And I think audience members would have also really liked seeing the younger daughter, Gladys.
Yeah.
I think that like because she was from American Horror Story, people are like, oh my god, that's a familiar face there, and I think they'll enjoy that and see her character be developed.
I don't know if you noticed, but Mrs. Astor, she didn't come often, but she was in yellow in like the charity event, the really big one.
Oh.
Yeah.
And she actually, if you noticed her voice, guys, she plays Mother Gothel in Tangled, right?
Oh my
She came on, I was
gosh.
like, that's Mother Gothel.
Yeah.
So things like that, and then of course Christine Baranski, we know who she is. So there were a lot of familiar faces, and that's also really cool to see.
So let's see what the audience score is.
Lovely producer.
Is it
that's
upside
upside
down?
down?
60.
Ooh,
Oh my
wow.
Wow, so that's so interesting when
It's
the
fascinating.
audience goes lower.
That's wow.
Maybe
I mean-
people were expecting more from it.
I think.
Yeah, I think
think
so.
it was hyped up.
Yeah. Well, like we said multiple times, it is the first two, and like it's supposed to be the pilot that hooks you and draws you in. And I think, like you mentioned, Marion being the protagonist, it's supposed to be like she's the central figure. She isn't that alluring on her own. It's like more whoever's around her. So I could see why the audience would go lower.
I think that like also audiences may have not like entirely liked the idea of like the very long pilot episode and then like a shorter
It was very
second
long.
episode. Like it was when I saw it, I was just very off put. Like I was like,
That was a
oh my
movie.
god, it's a movie right
Yeah.
there. So I think
That's what
that's
I
also like as an audience member, I was like, oh my god, it's gonna take forever. But,
Yeah.
yeah, I think like even so, like only like the end of the pilot episode was really like getting into the
Exactly.
nitty gritty, and I think like that's a pacing problem that the show also might have.
Yeah, I definitely think that having it so long and for a pilot, they definitely had a lot of like filler moments in the
Yes.
first episode. And I think the second one,
So many
progressed so
servants.
much more, and I definitely liked it a lot more. And I was just talking about the character, the butler, the head butler for the Van Ryans, the British guy. He's also a character I really love.
True.
So there are many minor characters that you fall in love with, and or
I like the Van Ryn's chef. Mr.
Yes.
Goodall. He is very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be nice. It seems like, but there's so many servant scenes that it's like, what? Also, there seems to be like there's a really specific scene where like that one servant who's kind of like really pretentious. It's a I can't
Miss
remember.
Turner?
Miss Turner, the
I
one
think
that's
Miss
hitting
Turner.
on Mr. Lawson.
Yeah,
Oh, we don't know yet.
I saw that
We
and I
don't
was
know.
like, that is such a there's so many
Cliche.
tropes in it. Like that's
Yeah.
what, like even and it's actually a lot of times in the servants like they have. I know this is kind of like a tangent, but there's like an Irish servant there.
Yes.
And I think it's in the Van Ryan's house, and she's aggressive towards the black woman who
Yeah.
comes in, and Miss Scott, and she is ginger. She has a really strong accent. And and her name is Bridget, and she's working as a servant in New York City. So if anyone has taken A-Push and like read that chapter and all that stuff, that's like a huge stereotype. And I know it's not as harmful obviously as some other stereotypes because of course it's historical and it's kind of limited. You know, it's Irish. It's still kind of just like, wow, that's really kind of y'all didn't do your research. It's so obvious that it's kind of like it looks like they scanned the chapter and they're like, okay, we'll put this one in. Because she doesn't really have any other role besides those two prominent scenes of her just kind of being there as a servant. And then also there's the gay twist at the end for the Van Ryan's son turns out to be gay. And that like really offset me because it's another big trope because I saw it in like Game of Thrones. It's like almost the exact play-by-play scene structure. And I was like, wow, okay, they're doing that.
Do you consider it just like a token kind of thing that they just do it to have that token of diversity?
Yeah.
And it's not like true representation.
And I think, sorry.
No,
But,
keep going.
there's some. I was thinking about comparing it to Game of Thrones because that's another HBO show that I was like really into. A couple of years back when it was airing. Up until then, they were like, they had good prospects of surviving because it's Game of Thrones, and then after that, it just completely went downhill. And I feel like something similar might happen here, just because of the trope where it's like,
Yeah,
oh, he's
very.
gay, and then like maybe because he'll be found out, he won't inherit the money. That's at least what my family was discussing when we saw that twist.
No, I feel like it definitely was like a tokenization almost
Yeah.
because they did throw it in at like the very last one of the pilot episode.
Another thing that was interesting was that usually in like Downton Abbey and most other historical dramas, there is this dichotomy between the poor and the rich. But this doesn't really focus on that as much. We were talking about the servant scenes, but I think mostly what this is about is between the old rich and the nouveau riche, which is more interesting to me because in the Gilded Age, that's what we're entering, right? We're entering the modern era, and it's focused on whether or not you care about the rich people, how the rich people are adapting to it, and whether or not they can move into the new era. Because whether you like it or not, the rich people, like the people working in the railroads, I forget the guy's name, they have to adjust for society to progress and for the economy to grow.
Question. If we are rooting for it, who are you guys rooting for, Mr. Rakes or Larry Russell here?
Oh, you
No,
can't.
I gotta
We're getting
ask. I gotta
into
ask.
That's true.
I mean, if you go find Mrs. Van Ryn, she's gonna get married. So.
Yeah. I mean, it is interesting though because at first this seemed like Mr. Rakes was unrequited. She didn't reciprocate.
Yeah,
But it does
really,
seem like after that Central Park date, it looks like Marion kind of, getting a little smiley with him and.
Yeah.
But who knows? I mean, they keep bringing up Larry Russell. What's his name? Larry?
Larry.
Yeah, Larry Russell. So, I have no idea.
Yeah, it's kind of weird that they had like two love interests kind of thing, because there was something like off-putting about like the lawyer.
Yeah, he was a little. I was cringing.
Yeah, it's just kind of and also he seems like he's older than her by like a margin.
I think so. I can't remember.
He kind of looked. Well, if you're a lawyer and she seems like a
Yeah.
young woman, and if he had to have gone through law school, so he must be at least in like his 20s. So that's what I was thinking. Just also based on the actor. Larry Russell, I think he seems like he'd probably treat her well, and it's nice. And also the drama is interesting, I guess, with the Russell family and the Van Ryn family. But then the meeting really was like so the way that like her dog jumped into the street.
Oh my god.
And she was just
That's
she got
you
over it.
mentioned that.
She got over it so quickly, and I was like, if my dog ran into the street, I would probably be like, I would not be able to recover even if she was okay. Like
it was just like, oh my god, my valiant soul knight, he just saved my dog. My mom was like, that was so weird. I was like, true to that. But yeah, I think we'll see. But really, she doesn't need anybody. Like Aaleia said. I have another point though, just really quickly about the Russells. At the end of the first episode, when basically Mrs. Russell's party was a bust, and she was like crying in her bed. I really like her story and her arc and her just constant battle to trying to be accepted. I think she's a very interesting character with how much conviction she has, and then also the defeat she has. And her husband as well. I think he supports her, and he made a very big presence at the charity event.
At the chair, I was like, yes.
That was so.
Her, yeah.
It was so.
They're
so
both
good.
like, I'm telling you, like.
Censor? Oh my god.
Beep.
And when she was crying in her bed, she says they're all going to pay for this someday.
Yes,
something
and
like
I
that.
liked his line like, "Defeat's not a good look on you."
Yeah,
we'll
I
see.
like that one.
We'll see.
So we'll see what happens with them.
Yeah.
Okay, writers,
So-
you got that one. That one.
So
You get
to
that.
wrap up a bit, I think that we maybe have two people who did not like it very much, and two of us who maybe liked it more, but I think we have to continue watching to see.
Yeah.
So Amelia, thank you so much for joining us today. We really enjoyed having you on the show, and hopefully you can come back for another episode, and maybe we can do the other show or movie that you didn't pick.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, you were super insightful. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you
So
so
a
much.
big clap for Amelia today.
I see too much.
Thank you.
So I guess that's a wrap for today's episode. So quick reminder to all of you to rate Operation Tomato Meter on Apple Podcasts and to check out the Classics Instagram and our TikTok page at THHS Classic to see bloopers, behind the scenes, and other cool projects that we're working on. So yeah, see you all next week.
Bye.
Bye.